Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hey everybody, it's me, Remy, the comic book poser. I'm here today to welcome you to Enter the Poseverse. It's been a hot minute since we've had a Thursday Night Live, and today's guest and I have been going back and forth about trying to find the best time for an interview. So I literally yesterday was like, how about tomorrow? And he went, yeah, okay, let's do it now. So I'm excited, and we'll chat about him and his project here in a few seconds. And here about 2 minutes in, if you didn't see it in the link in the description, the lovely spam bot will keep dropping the link to today's guest Kickstarter project. But I real quick would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all of my patrons and or people who are channel members. I got done packing up everybody's mystery boxes and thank you gifts who have been around for 2 or 3 months before I started fighting a camera earlier. So you'll get some tracking numbers here very shortly, but I'll always tell y'all thank you for your support. So before we bring on our guest, I always like using elements of what people put up on Kickstarter, right, to draw you in, to get you hyped up about the book, right? The video is always at the top of the page. So we're gonna look a little bit at the premise of Man-Child #1, and then you'll see if I am too slow to stop the video. Then you'll see our guest, and I'll turn that off and be like, "Whoops, wasn't fast enough." So here we go. Enjoy, everybody.
It's a funny thing. Very often I'll come to stations like this and do interviews, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone, let's say, to a television station, and the cameraman, somebody in his 30s maybe, or late 20s, will walk over to me. It makes me feel very old, but he'll say, "Hey, Stan, gee whiz, I've been reading your stuff since I was 14. Tell me, how's the Hulk doing today?"
November 12th, 2018. I was at my day job like any other ordinary weekday. All at once, my phone started buzzing and I was getting calls and texts from friends. They all had the same thing to tell me. Stan Lee died. It was devastating. I wasn't prepared for Stan Lee, a man so instrumental in making my childhood, as well as millions of others, a childhood filled with imagination and possibilities, to be gone. A man whom, through his creations, gave me something irreplaceable, a place to escape and become inspired. I missed Stan Lee and needed to grieve, but being the writer I am, I also needed to give back. To do that, I needed to rediscover who he was, what he did, how he did it, and why. This is how Man-Child came to be. Hi, I'm not.
I paused it just in time. Hi, everybody who's here in the chat. Umpty, I'm glad you're up this late. Usually I'm not this articulate right now, or I'm busy peddling my books on whatnot. But I love that video. I want to talk about some of the things that our guests said about the process of kind of curating through all things Stan Lee to get into the mindset for this book. Because like the first time I saw that video, I got in the feels, right? That I have no creative bone in my body when it comes to writing or doing anything artistic, right? But if it wasn't for someone like Stan Lee, right, then I wouldn't have all of this stuff behind me, right? That, my box of escapism. So I really enjoy not just the premise of centering a book around the passing of a Titan, but going through a process of discovery or rediscovery to pay some homage to the art form. So I haven't also gotten to click on this lovely intro in a while. I need to make a better version of this, but I still think the song is fun. So we'll play the interview intro, and then we'll finally bring the guest on, and you're not just looking at my goofy face.
When I'm flying in a plane or I'm on the street, there's a lot of famous people that I like to meet. They shake my hand and never ask my name, and they start asking questions that are always the same. Hey.
All right, I'm excited to welcome into the Poserverse tonight's guest and the author and creative brainchild behind Manchild #1, which you can back on Kickstarter right now, Nandor Fox Shaffer. How you doing, bud?
Hey, Poser. I'm doing okay, man. How are you doing?
It's almost the weekend.
Yeah, we're almost
back
there.
into the
We
grind.
can make it.
Yes, I've earned my massive Thursday beer.
Yeah.
Before we start talking about Manchild in particular,
Yeah.
you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you got into comics, all that other stuff?
I'd love to. I have been, a avid comic book reader for many, many years. And I remember one of my first experiences, getting into comics and where I was and going, my dad bringing my brother and I to our local comic shop and just discovering the wealth and the depth and breadth of what comics were, and just like really diving into all of the lore when I was about probably 9 or 10 years old. I remember watching like the first X-Men movies and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy really, really young. And that was definitely a big part of me being interested in Marvel comics and in DC comics, and watching the Michael Keaton Batman and those really older films that my dad definitely wanted us to watch. And so that's where I got a lot of my love for these characters. And then when I started to learn that, oh, hey, like they still make comic books, like you can actually follow these characters on a monthly basis. And that was something that really blew my mind. And so I started getting my favorite characters, and I started reading about them and going to my local shop and getting back issues and just looking at, what I wanted, what these worlds and these characters had to offer. So, I started reading comics at a very young age, and have been a fan ever since. And when I turned about 17 or 18, right out of high school, I had the bright idea of, I want to write comics. This is something I want to do. I really love storytelling, and I love film and television and comics for sure. And so I began writing what eventually became Seasons, which is my first book over here on my my right or my left, depending on what we're looking at here. But yeah, so I started developing that story right out of high school, and then I was in college. I finished the first arc, and then I decided to postpone going to college because I wanted to write comics. I wanted to make comics. So I stopped going to school, and I started to hunt for an artist for Seasons. And we started once I found him, and we were putting this book together. We put it online for free for people to read, and did a Kickstarter for the first volume in 2017. The book came out in early 2018. And then ever since then, I've been trying to break into the industry and just make my stories and share my stories with people. And it's been just an incredible process, and it's been a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, a lot of money and time and effort, but something that has been just an incredible experience altogether.
Nice. And we'll talk about Seasons as well, and I will add the link to the bot as well, because I forgot to do that earlier.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah.
In the video, kind of teasing Manchild, you talked about how you heard the news of Stan Lee's passing while you were at work. So I
Yeah.
love to hear what kind of daily grind a lot of indie creators are in. Like, one of my favorite answers so far has been that Matthew Erdman was a social media manager for an egg roll company. So what was or is your daily grind when you're not actively writing and promoting comics?
Yeah, so for a few years, I worked in a clothing store. I worked in Ross Dress for Less, and I was one of the stock people in the stock room that put all the stuff out for the floor, and I didn't really have to deal with customers, so that was kind of nice because I'm in a retail situation, but I didn't have to deal with too many people. I just had to deal with my team that I was working with. So
Sure.
that was nice. But recently, I uh, am working at probably the best place you could possibly work when it comes to a retail situation, and that is my own local bookstore here in my area. So I am just surrounded by stories. I absolutely love it. You know, if it's a really slow day, I can pick up a book and I can start reading it, and you know, it's a wonderful thing. I've always loved novels and reading books, and I love helping people find the story they want because that's exciting for me to learn about. You know, what kind of stories are you interested in? And I love talking to people about that. So I'm the assistant manager at a local bookstore here in my area, and you know, it's not always the best, but and it can definitely get a little grating sometimes. But I think in the retail world, it's the best place for me because growing up, that was always like a dream. Is like, you know, I'd love to work at a Barnes and Noble or a comic book store or something like that. It was just like I'd love to be surrounded by stories and books and work in that environment. So it's been really good to me.
Sure. And before we talk about Manchild, you gave us a little bit of some of those memories of early stories that you got into.
Hmm.
And I can tell by how much better your back setting is than mine, some of your loves, that I think it's safe to assume that you're into Star Wars,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
maybe some Captain America based on the perfectly centered
Maybe.
shield.
Yeah.
So aside from those, who are some of your favorite characters or some of your favorite stories to get into when you need to, get lost in the pleasant medium that we have become
Yeah.
fans of?
Oh man, I'm a huge fan of the Earth X trilogy by Jim Kruger and Alex Ross and Doug Braithwaite. That was one of my all-time favorite stories that I immersed myself into, and every time I look back at it, I adore. I am really my love for Captain America started, and I'm sure it started for a lot of people around my age and maybe even some other people that are older, but with Ed Brubaker's Captain America, because
Mm-hmm.
when he started, that was just a complete shift for the character, and it really took the character in this new direction in a very serious tone and introducing, of course, now everyone loves the Winter Soldier, but I mean, at the
Yeah.
time when you're reading it, you know, I mean, I loved the Winter Soldier before, you know, all the fangirls love the Winter Soldier or whatever. So like, you know, I think about that, and that was a real turning point in my love for the character and appreciating um all of what his supporting cast had to do. That's something that Ed
Yeah.
Brubaker did so amazing in that run, is he made all the supporting cast feel so essential and integral to the storyline. And so that was something that really stuck out to me. But um then I'm my favorite comic book writer is Jonathan Hickman, and it was really his run on Fantastic Four, and also his Avengers and New Avengers run that he did, that just really made me appreciate more than the characters. It was more of how to tell a comic book story over a long period of time, and his long form storytelling techniques that he would use. It was just really fascinating to me, and it was one of the most instrumental pieces of art and storytelling that I absorbed that changed the way I thought about how you could write comics or how you could approach comics. So that was a massive influence for me. But you know, when it comes to other characters, I am a massive fan of a lot of obscure characters or more characters that aren't necessarily in the A-list tier, and those would be like The Question and Moon
Nice.
Knight. Like I'm so pumped for the Disney Plus series for Moon Knight because I never thought we would get one, and so I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like hopefully this is awesome. And I loved Ant Man. I loved Hank Pym's Ant Man, and uh, I'm a big fan of the more scientist type of characters like Reed
Sure.
Richards and Bruce Banner and Hank Pym and Tony Stark, and so I have a real love for those types of characters, and um, also you know, as I've gotten older, of course, I've learned to appreciate more independent titles and more indie books and things like that. So, yeah, but I always go back to characters like Captain America and you know, I was never a huge Batman fan, but I loved like Batman Beyond. Like I loved Batman Beyond more than I did Bruce Wayne. I loved Terry McGinnis more than I did Bruce Wayne. So the Batman Beyond TV show was really instrumental. And then going back to the X-Men films, but also the 90s X-Men show, I remember growing up
Hmm.
watching reruns of that show. Yeah, and I just absolutely fell in love with the X-Men so much.
I will say, Foxy, thank you for that super chat. My buddy Fox Crown, my local neighborhood scum lord. Yes, I am cheating on you with another fox tonight. I do
Oh, man.
apologize. But you were still my first fox. Um, yeah, you mentioned Hickman, and he is someone who has become kind of special to me because I did a lot of comic collecting and reading when I was in high school, and then
Mhm,
I started working a lot, and then college I just got too busy, and
mhm.
recently got back into comics literally right when House and Powers of 10 or X and 10 were coming
Oh,
out,
yeah.
and to be able to jump into a hard reset of my favorite universe from a child, my childhood,
Mhm.
made me respect Hickman because the degree of difficulty of getting into that title from, a 20-year
Yeah.
hiatus was low. And then, I'm reading like the Manhattan Project and East of West. Like,
Yeah.
I agree that he's someone that definitely uh raises that bar when it comes to just amazing storytelling that
Yeah, he
he's thinking 15 moves ahead of us, but we
I
can
know,
never
that's
guess the right way.
yeah, that's what's so fascinating about him, and I'm actually really sad that he's gonna be leaving the X-Men title after I mean,
Hmm.
he's done with X-Men, he's gonna do Inferno, but, I just
And he's
recently
gone.
read, um, X-Men 21, his last X-Men issue, and it was so good, it was such a great finale to, um, these characters, and the way he wrote it was just there's something about the way Hickman starts a book and leaves a book that
Yeah.
feels very reverential and it feels like, you know, he's leaving it in good hands. And I cannot wait to see what he does with Inferno because I think that book is just going to,
Yeah.
you know, make everyone go, oh my gosh, you know, and as a Hickman fan, you really have to um, um, look at his work after the run is done
Hmm.
or when it's about done because a lot of people and maybe that's not for everyone but if you know Hickman you know that it's going to pay off in the end and you
Yeah.
just have to stick with it you just have to stick with it and eventually you're going to start to see all these pieces fall into play and things that you thought were unimportant or just filler those are actually not filler at all. And it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's just an incredible way to tell a story. And that's something that um, he did so well, and he does so well in all of his books that go on for a long time.
All right. So we've talked for just about 20 minutes about everything but what we're here to talk about today. But I like having fan moments that we all love to
Yeah,
see creators who are as, deep in this crazy pool as we are. So
definitely.
the premise that we got from the front end of the video on
Hmm.
Kickstarter is that this is clearly a work that is inspired by Stan Lee and in some shape or form is meant, as kind of a tip of the cap. So give
Yeah.
us give us your pitch on what Man-Child is about.
Man-Child is going to be a 6-issue limited series. It tells two stories simultaneously. One story takes place in this Silver Age inspired superhero universe with the captivating Monarch Crier, as he is the champion of New York City, and you follow him, and his alias is George Jeffrey, and he's a biochemist, and he is a hero of New York, and you're in New York with this character, and it has a very Silver Age esque feel, and the way the story is told is in a Silver Age manner, and he battles Professor Pilgrim, who is the super tech genius that has his own island in the North Pacific, and he is this this ambitious villain that is creating his own society on his own island. So, and the Monarch Crier is trying to figure out what Professor Pilgrim is up to in this storyline, and then so that's the one story, and it's all told in that Stan Lee bravado and excitement and all those exclamation marks and all that stuff. So you read that story and it's completely like you're being transported and teleported back to this time of a time when comics were retro and vintage and classic, and like they were on the cusp of something new and exciting, and that's what Stanley brought to the table. So that's what you're going to get with this story, and then at
Yeah,
the same
looking
time
just
you're
at the first page
yeah.
of the preview that is up on Kickstarter, and I'll see if I can. Let's see. Let me do that. Now let me. Nope. You're still huge, and that's still tiny. Can I go the other way? Can I switch you? I'm bad at technology. Ah, there we go.
You're good, man.
And I mean, looking at this, right? Those elements where we see the fantasy of that classic comic, this just
Yeah,
screams Silver, not just from the art style, but even down to the lettering. Uh,
exactly.
and then I'll
Yeah.
skip to another bit of that, right? We get more pieces of that kind of intermingled around the story
Mhm.
of Rufus. Now,
Right.
talk to us about Rufus as an inspiration, about
Mhm.
whatever role Rufus is as our conduit throughout the story.
Yeah, completely. So, yeah, since it's two stories, you'll be with the Monarch Crier, and then you'll turn the page, and you'll be in reality with Rufus Boston, who is this comic book nerd like all of us, the fans of comics, and he hangs out with his friends. He goes to the comic shop every Wednesday. Him and his friends go to the new superhero movie playing at their local theater, and it's a circle that you find that you have, with your own friends in your own community. And he is the man child, essentially. He lives in his parents' basement. He's a virgin. He's 30 years old. He just doesn't, really he checks out of reality, and but he loves stories and he loves comics, and you really get to see comic book fandom at its height, in the sense of what it's like to be someone that's so um, you know just absorbed in these stories and in these characters. And so you'll have these conversations, that I'll have with his friends about this particular movie or the story, or something that happened in comic book culture, and
Mhm.
you really get that sense of, this is what it's like to be a comic book fan. So the way that these two stories connect is a mystery for the reader to discover as they read the series. So it's something that you have to um, uh, piece together as you read each issue and as you're following Rufus's story and the Monarch Crier story, and you'll see little hints of things that might make you, question. Is this in the same reality? Is this, is this in the same world, or what? Like, what's happening here? So that's something that I want you to kind of question, and I want the story itself to feel like a bridge between the dream and the dreamer and reality and fantasy.
That sounds very Hickman-esque of you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So one of the things that you kind of mentioned again in the front end of the clip is, typically when people write stories, we will hear people talk about researching
Mhm.
locations. If it's a period piece, right, they're researching the period to make sure the things that they do are accurate. If you're writing,
Yeah.
once in future, you're making sure you didn't fail like your high school and college literature courses. So you
Yeah.
talked about how you did some digging into the lifetimes and work of Stan Lee. So what kind
Yeah.
of research did you focus on, and then
Mhm.
how did it inform your approach to the story you wanted to tell?
Yeah, so this research really started after Stanley had passed. I saw a lot of people disrespecting him, funnily enough, and that was in the way of going, he passes away, and a lot of people are like, well, he was just a thief anyways, like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. You have that debate of, well, who actually created these characters,
Yeah.
and that was something that I hadn't really seen a lot of. I had heard, a few things, but I was just like, but then it started to kind of bug me even more, and I wanted to do my own research into, okay, what actually happened, and like who actually created these characters. um and because, we kind of, Stan Lee's so popular, and he's, everyone looks at him, he's the public face of Marvel. And so that fascinated me anymore, because I'm like, man, have I been believing this lie for like all these years of like who Stan Lee was? And I was like, surely not. So I wanted to do research about that, and that led me to want to do just more and more research about him, and the kind of person he was, and why he created these characters, and what the inspirations for those characters were. And the more and more I found out about him, the more I saw how that was debunking that lie of like, oh, just stole these characters
Mhm.
from Kirby and all that stuff. And the more it informed me and made me appreciate the kind of collaborator and creator he was, someone who helped people, helped all these artists get all of these jobs and gave them jobs, and was just a public face to help Marvel Comics become something even bigger. And just, he was a marketing genius. I mean, he was a businessman genius that
Yeah.
really just put Marvel in the spot, that employed all these people, that helped all these people, that gave everyone this creative reign to create these characters. And the more so I read 3 or 4 biographies on his life. I read 1 or 2 books on the history of Marvel, and I wrote down just constantly notes and different quotes, and I watched interviews, and I wanted to just learn more about um, what it was like to be Stan Lee at this time of creating the Fantastic Four and Spider
Yeah.
Man, and creating all these characters that now we just have, and we're just like, yeah, Spider-Man. It's like, it's weird to think of a world where like Spider-Man wasn't there. Like, that's so crazy to think that
Yeah.
these characters weren't there, because as someone my age, of course, and other people too, it's like we grew up with these characters. They've always been there. And so that just really fascinated me, because I'm like, how does that happen? How do you create something so iconic as Spider-Man, and someone like Stan Lee, who created the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and X-Men, like so many characters.
Yeah.
It'd be different if he just created one character, but it was like he had his hand in all of these characters, and that just I just thought, like, you had to have it had to have been the right place at the right time with the right people, and to create these characters and these stories that have lived on for generations and generations, and stories that are outliving him. That just
Mhm.
is incredible to think about. As someone like Stan Lee, it's like his characters are going to be there, for who knows how long.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just incredible. So in terms of how that affects the story, you'll find that there are pieces of Stan Lee in the story and pieces of Stanley and the character George Jeffrey and the Monarch Crier character.
Mhm.
You'll see that Kirby and Lee debate between Rufus and another character, because this universe's version of Stanley, his name's Stu Leeds, and he passes away, and it's really devastating to Rufus. And that's that scene right there where he
Mhm.
drops the phone, and that's completely inspired by what happened to me at my day job when I got all these texts and this phone call from my friends and family telling me that Stan Lee died, and I was just like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like he's always been there. Like you just don't imagine someone that happening, because it plays into the idea of like, reality sucks and reality invades your fantasy. I mean, you can't have one without the other. It's like
Mhm.
they're intermingled, and you watch a movie and then it's over, and then you're back and you're just like, oh, this sucks, I mean, I know a lot of people can
Yeah.
feel that way, but also, and that's something that the story does itself, because you're going to be reading the Monarch Crier in this story, and then you're going to turn the page, and then, oh, you're back in reality with Rufus, and then you're going to read more of his story, and then you're back with the Monarch Crier, and you're in this really exciting, superhero world where he's battling the bad guys, and he's having drama with other characters. And yeah, I mean, it's a celebration of what it means to be a fan, and of what Stan Lee was able to conjure up in that time in the early 60s, and what that looks like.
Yeah, and when you first reached out to me in the pre-launch phase of the project, and you're
Hmm.
like, "Hey, I'm writing a book that is a tip of the cap to Stan Lee. That if you are a
Yeah.
fan of any kind of comics, this is something that you could get into." Right, knowing the level of research that you put in, right? That a lot of
Hmm.
people could say this is my tribute because it is art style or it's the
Right.
storytelling, but
Right.
doing that, the level of deep dive that you did is something that resonated with me, because in addition to the comics that I collect, a large chunk of the bookshelf that's right out of the frame is
Hmm.
Stanley Funko Pop, Stanley figures, right? Because of the same kind of
Yeah.
escapism. And I agree with you that regardless of where everything stands in terms of his contribution, is there theft, are there those kinds of different things,
Right.
one of the things that you can definitely highlight is that he is an innovator that inspired a wave of people who want to continue to make these things relevant, right? The fact that there
Yeah.
are still shows that are redefining these characters. Like my 5-year-old is in love with Superhero Squad, which is a
Yeah.
kid-friendly retelling of how some of these teams come together. That I think that's
Hmm.
something else that still speaks to his impact.
Yeah,
Uh,
completely.
So, how did you hook up with your artists and other members
Mhm.
of your team for the creation of this book?
Yeah, so the artist for Man Child issue one is Jay Mazar, and I found him through a digital art forum, and he actually hasn't really ever done a superhero book. He's done some noir stuff, and he actually was really kind of worried about doing this project, because he was like, "Wait, I like, why are you picking me, or like, why do you want to work with me? Because I haven't really done anything like this before." And it's just, he had this really classic style, and I was really looking for someone that could um do a classic type of style, but also modern. I was looking for like a Greg Smallwood or a Chris Somney or Darwin Cook, someone like that you look at their work and it feels classic, but it also feels like it has some timelessness to it. And the reality portions, the Rufus portions, it still has this sense of modern appeal, and it's something that's palatable for modern audiences. So I did think at one point maybe I should have one artist for the Silver Age stuff and one artist for the
Mhm.
modern day stuff, but I really like to keep my creative team as close as possible, because the more people you work with, the harder it is to keep track of things. And so I wanted to just kind of work with someone that I knew could do it all, and he does it all. He does the pencils, the inks, the colors,
Nice.
and yeah, he's just a one man army in that department. And
Well, and I
DC
think,
Hop, yeah,
sorry, I think, sticking with one artist is something that makes it work, right? That if part of the story is intentionally jarring because we are hopping in and out of,
hmm,
fantasy versus Rufus's reality, I think having, the consistency of the artistic style, right? That you can feel
yeah,
the good old Silver Age in those moments, but then you can also feel like a silver touched modernity with the scenes that have Rufus in it. I think
yeah,
that's something that makes that disjunct to the reader less of a barrier, right? That it's not,
hmm,
my brain is blowing up because there's different art and the
yeah.
story is jumping. That I think it works because there's not too much shifts in the visual nature of how the story is told.
Yeah, completely. And I think he what's cool is, he's such a talented artist enough that when we do jump between the two, that he's good enough to hold the hand of the reader, to where when you do
Hmm.
get to those pages, that you're not taken out of it too much, or you're just like, now wait a second. And it was important to me. It's like I didn't want someone to like the Silver Age artist, but like not like the modern day style, or vice versa. It's like I wanted to have someone that when people get the book, they consistently know that they're getting someone who's really good and someone who's talented enough to where they feel like they're getting a good product and not like half of a good product.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I was going to mention DC Hopkins is a letterer, and he's worked
Hmm.
for Dark Horse and Boom and DC Comics, and a lot of, he's a professional letterer in every sense of the word. So he's lending, great craftsmanship to his lettering and making, really gluing it all together, because without his letters, it wouldn't be the same that it is. So he's really
I
knocking it out of the park.
I agree with that, and I am, as people who watch my stuff know, that I am a big fan of letterers because,
Yeah.
I've had conversations with, full creative teams at a time, and there's the
hmm
joke that without the letterers, right, the art just becomes meaningless. That there is an art
Yeah.
to the font selection, to the placement of the text, and all of that stuff.
hmm
And I really think, like I said, we get the element of some of those good classic pieces of Silver Age lettering,
Yeah.
but then we also, like, it's just the right touch at the right time. And DC Hopkins is one of those people who is up on my food chain of people that, you know, people talk about buying a book for the author or the artist. I have
Yeah.
picked up books because of the letter attached before, right?
That's
And DC
awesome.
Hopkins has been one of those people where it's like, all right, this story sounds weird. Let's see, let's see what he does to play with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are 13 days away from the deadline, or 12 days
hmm
away from the deadline, and you're just under, uh, or just over 50% funded. And one of the things that I like to
Yeah.
show people with Kickstarters is I know that, you are not going to make a cajillion dollars off of this Kickstarter. Like, the goal is to make
Right.
sure the artist gets a paycheck, the cover
Oh
artist gets a
yeah.
paycheck, the you
Yeah.
cover the cost of printing. And I think, I've backed a first issue of something and paid like $20 for just a physical issue, right? That
Hmm.
there's nothing else attached to it. And one of the things that I like is that you've got good, affordable levels of backing, right? That $5
Yeah.
gets you a PDF, $10 gets you a cover, $5 more for a signature. That I've had places that will charge you $10 to $15 more on top of that. And then
Yeah.
we get the variants, and you have hooked up again with some folks who are some decent hitters in the art range, right? That
Hmm.
we use this Welby cover on, I think I used it in my blog post, and we used it on the thumbnail. That is
Yeah.
just stunning. My personal favorite is this Tom Riley variant that
Yeah.
if I drop all of us off of the screen really fast, like there's just this lovely picture of the fantasy element and then Rufus in
Uh-huh.
the bathroom. So let's see if I can kick us all off real fast and go, haha, that's funny. And like I think that's a clever cover, and that's a good one that kind of shows that story premise, like because we've all read
Yeah,
a comic
completely.
while in the bathroom. And then I like this Patara variant because you feel like the silvery influence of the villain.
Hmm.
And then I like the Tony Harris cover because you've got those the people from the fantasy element of the book in a very like modern, like picturesque pencil sketching kind of way that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like. This to me feels like a good selling point for the book, that you're going to get something nice and classical with modern touches on it. And I mean,
Hmm.
as you continue to go down, right, like getting all kinds of benefits are coming $5 at a time. And then looking at some of the things that you're doing for the bigger dollar points, right, are good. Like I have the lowly $25 pledge right now. But I every time that we've talked or I've looked at the progress of the project, go, I might want to just get everything, right? To do all those
Yeah.
bundles, because if I'm gonna buy into one, right, that I might as well get everything in one package instead of trying to hunt everything else down. So
Yeah.
um what there was going to be a question there and I just rambled for a while. Like we setting it at an affordable price, it was good. What kind of made you decide what you wanted to offer at each like backer tier?
Yeah, so it's really important for me when I do these campaigns that um the higher you go, the better deal you feel like you're getting. And the more of course that you're getting. So um and personally, there are campaigns that, it's a single issue, but the single issue is like, $20 or $25.
Yeah.
And sometimes that doesn't even include shipping. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. And that really irks me because there are times where I'll be at the checkout for a Kickstarter campaign for this book that I want, and it's already like $20 just for a single issue, and then they'll add $5 to $7 of shipping on top of that, and all of a sudden I'm paying $10 more than I thought I'd have to pay. And so I really didn't want anyone to go to the campaign and look at the single issue and go, "Oh, cool, it's $10, but, oh, I probably have to pay, more," or, I want people to look at it and go, "Oh my gosh, it's only $10? Like, I'm getting this, like, this is a steal." Like, I want
Yeah.
people to feel like they are getting a steal or, a deal in a sense of going, and it's really important for me because I know what it's like to not have a lot of money but still want a comic or still want to
Yeah.
support someone. And so I want people to know that, hey, you don't have to, make this quota amount of money to like back my projects. Like $10 gets you a single issue, and really it's basically you're only paying like $5 or $6 because there's no shipping that is added onto it. So you're basically getting the issue for like $5 or $6 and is paying for shipping, because all US backers, it's free shipping. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like, a great deal there. But yeah, I really and then of course with the variant covers, they're more expensive, but that's because they're these top tier artists, and
Yeah.
they deserve to be appreciated for their work and what they were able to do, and how they're really helping out the campaign by being a part of it, and that's bringing people to the campaign. So they deserve that extra credit, and it's
Yeah.
it's not a whole lot more money for the variant covers at all. So yeah, it's campaigns are really interesting in doing them because um you know eh, it's like you want to bring as many people to your campaign as possible and have as many backers as possible, but you also don't want to have it to be where it's too high and the backers don't pledge, or it's way too low and then you
Yep.
don't hit your goal. It's like there's a
Yeah.
balance that you have to find between those.
So, uh, I think everybody should back this, right? I'm intrigued by the project. If not, right, Nandor and I would
Hmm.
not be talking here now. I wouldn't have written about it on the blog.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that if you are any kind of fan of the medium, that this is a story that is worth getting into, because it's
Yeah.
very much fan service, right? That as much as it is
Yeah.
a story, it's celebrating the influence of creators, but then the tip of the cap in the direction of those of us who are just obsessed with picture books, which I think
It-
is
yeah.
amazing. So
Yeah, completely.
the last question that I'll ask you about Manchild is the one that I told you I like to ask from time to time, that you talked about enjoying consuming all forms of media, that Rufus is, like us, one of those people who is, if there's
Hmm.
anything superhero or comic related, he is in.
Yeah.
So when I read stuff, I see stuff, right? The way that my brain works is that music just starts playing, right? That's how I know a
Hmm.
story is good, that my brain will then create the other half of the cinematic element. So if
Yeah.
you had to pick two or three songs that would be the perfect accompaniment to Manchild #1, what would you pick and why?
Man, when I was writing this series, and when I was getting art back and looking at it, it started to make me think about all of the great scores from my favorite comic book films, and
Hmm.
so like, and that was the reason why the music you hear at the video, my actually I had my brother, he composed that and did that,
Nice.
because I wanted something that uh, was akin to Richard Donner's Superman or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and John Williams' score for Superman, and that main Superman theme. When you hear that main Superman theme, it's just like, oh my gosh, you're just like transported to uh, the '78 Superman. So I would really go back to those, like I'd say the Richard Donner Superman theme, and then Danny Elfman's Spider-Man theme for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and then I would go to, for my last pick, I'd probably say um, hmm, probably go with Captain America: The First Avenger, Alan Silvestri's Captain America theme for
Oh,
that movie.
that's a good one.
Really, really love that theme, and it just has it has a patriotic American tone to it, but also this operatic sense of wonder, and of a traditional, like, bygone era that you can just really get nostalgic for, and that's
Yeah.
something that I really, really enjoy with with different scores and music. So I would pick those three themes.
Well, and those all definitely kind of fit the mood of the book, right? Kind of
Yeah.
embracing that nostalgia and the days of old. And I think again, that's why it's kind of cool. And I'm liking that we are seeing more uh either small press comics or Kickstarters where you're having people going, yes, in the day of our Lord 2021, I am writing a Silver Age or a Golden Age book.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
to see the ones that make that promise and pull it off, it's like, damn, like why don't more
Yeah.
people do this? And I think, that's the reaction that I want people to have when they finish reading either the preview of this on the Kickstarter or when number one
Hmm.
is done. Like, all right, I'm done. It's in my hands. I'm done. When does number two start? When's the project done?
Yeah. Totally. Totally. And I want to let everyone know, who's watching, like, oh, does Nandor know like what he's doing with this series and whatever? And I want to let everyone know that I'm writing. It's going to be 6 issues, and I'm writing the final issue right now. So I've
Nice.
been really invested in this series and these characters for about 2 years now, and making this comic and doing all the research that I've done and going back and forth and how I want to tell this story and editing my scripts and stuff. So, if people are wondering, um, does this have an ending? Is it actually going to come out? How fast will I get the next issue?
Hmm.
It's really my plan and my goal to fulfill issue one, and then a few weeks to a month after everyone gets issue one, like launch issue two,
Yeah.
right away, and have people excited for the next issue and want to come back for it. And
And
so
that
yeah,
model definitely works because I've backed other
yeah.
projects that are like that. That it's almost like I am putting you on my monthly pull list, right?
Right.
Because yeah, you figure out your relationship with your printer, you know how to deliver with your artist, like you know how to go through those motions. And I like how, a month later, I get issue two. I'm
Hmm.
not waiting, another year, things like that as people jump through
Yeah.
hurdles. So I think that's pretty cool. Uh, the last thing I want to ask you about, and both of the items that you have next to you are
Hmm.
available. Either you can read them digitally from that you can find them through Seasons, the
Hmm.
website. But I know Seasons Volume 1 and 2 were your first project, and then Lifeline
Yeah.
was your second project. You want to give us the elevator pitch on both of those? Seasons as a series, and then Lifeline as an anthology.
Yeah, completely. So Seasons was my first foray into making comics and writing comics. It's a supernatural grounded superhero-esque story that follows this young man through 1 year of his life. It's a 1 year journey, and with each passing season the main character gets different abilities. So as the seasons change, so do his powers, and he has
That's
to
cool.
adapt to those, and each story has a different flavor or little genre twist to it. So like volume one is more of a supernatural dark horror story, and then volume two is more of a classic blockbuster type of superhero story. And then when we get to volumes three and four, those are going to change a little bit too. But so he deals with a different obstacle or enemy or sort of emotional battle that he has to go through with each book. And it's very much a ambitious project. Each book is a hardcover and is over 100 pages, so it's a full length graphic novel. You're getting, just a ton of content in there. And then Lifeline, I did this book in between seasons, volumes one and two, and I worked with 7 different artists from all around the world. And it tells this life story of this character as a young boy, starting as a young boy, and then all the way to an elderly man. So you see his whole life, but told through the eyes of different characters, different people that are close to him, or like his best friend, or his grandson. You get to learn about this character through different people. So, and each art style complements that decade and that perception that that character has on the main character of the story. So it was a really experimental, ambitious project with that one because I pulled in a lot of different people on it, and I wanted to see if I could tell a very cohesive story, but where the art styles change. And that's something that I think really helped me grapple what I wanted to do with Manchild, in the sense of not trying to do too much with it and trying to like change different art styles. So,
Yeah.
and telling different stories, not at the same time, but just over time, and tackling different themes. So, this book was really special. It's dedicated to my dad, and there's a lot of, if you're a fan of more straight dramas or like books from Jeff Lemire, and kind of his
Yep.
stuff that he's done. A lot of people have read this and told me that's what it reminds them of. So if you're into that, that's something that you can really dig into. And you can get all of these books in my Foxhole Comics bundle on the Kickstarter page. So if you want all of these, you can get all 3 graphic novels and Manchild issue 1, all signed by me, and only for $85. So you're getting over 300 pages
Yep.
of comics, and yeah, it's if you want to catch up with everything I've done, that's what I would encourage people to look at for sure.
Well, and basically the reason I asked that question was the low key. Why should I up my pledge by $60 to get all of it? And you were successful, at least on me, that I'm now at that Foxhole Comics bundle and then the special uh pooping cover. But I think
Right.
like I'll send that Tom Riley cover to CBCS and get it graded and be like, "Yep, I got a man taking a dump on my wall, and it's not the weirdest
Yeah,
thing out
yeah,
there yet."
man, totally. Yeah, and I
But
want, people that are watching this real quick, we're 3 backers away from 100 right now. So like it would be so sweet if we could hit, 100 backers tonight. And we got, 12 days left. We're 55% funded. So we're on our way, but I got to tell you, this week has been something else, because it's always that middle week that you start to worry a little bit, and you're like,
mhm.
wait a second, is this actually gonna fund? But we're on track to fund. It's just a matter of time and a matter of getting the word out there. But yeah, we're so close, and it's coming along really well.
You wanna give us a little tease of what the first stretch goal might be to see if that helps
Yeah.
sweeten the pot?
Totally. So I've been getting a lot of fan art in from other people. And in my first update for the campaign page, I
Mhm.
have 4 fan art pieces. And something that I would love to do is give every backer a free print of like each fan art.
Oh,
So
that
like
would
for
be
the first
cool.
stretch goal, yeah, I'd love to do a print for all those, and every physical backer gets all this fan art, all these prints for free. So that's something that I'd really like to do.
That's awesome. And that's a good way to again build more of the community around it that
Yeah.
I've discovered artists from prints that have come in places and it's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
they're real good. Like I have a huge man crush on Nate Johnson right now because I think the
Yeah.
way he does like negative space prints and everything else he does just blows my tiny little mind. But all right, we've hit that hour mark. I've got a phone call from my wife that I missed, which means I'm guessing that a kiddo is
It's
awake.
time to go.
So I'm gonna make you real big. You
Mhm.
got anything else you wanna say to our viewers, the listeners, whatever?
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that kind of what we've been hinting at here throughout the stream, like this book is for comic book fans, and it's not necessarily just for a specific genre of comic book fans. I mean, if you love superheroes, you're going to love this book, but it's more than that. It's about being a fan of something, whether if you're not into comics as much as other things, but it's looking at that and um celebrating that, not only celebrating what it means to be a fan, but also celebrating the joy of sharing that fandom with friends and loving that together. And so, um, if you're someone who's felt like an outsider, or like you just don't fit in, that's something that Rufus feels like in the
Mhm.
story, and it's something that you can really relate to. And sharing in this community, and what's so great about the indie comics community and the comic community in general is just how much we can connect over these stories and what they mean to us. And so, if you've ever felt like that, this story is for you. Like, you're going to enjoy this story. And also, this is a bridge between reality and fantasy, and the dream and the dreamer. And if you want a story that makes you feel like you're escaping reality, but also um, facing reality at the same time, and that's what we do in our everyday lives, this is a story for you. So I just really encourage everyone to check it out. And this will make you, if you don't love classic superhero stories, I guarantee you this book is going to make you love them, or make you appreciate them more than you ever have before. So that's a big goal of mine, is to to bring modern audiences to look at what it how this all started, and to appreciate it even more, and want to go back and read classic Stan Lee stuff. So yeah, like this is the most exciting thing I've worked on. It's the most fun
Mhm.
thing, the funnest thing that I've worked on. So if you want to get a smile on your face, like, that's what Man Child's going to do for you.
I think that's a good spot to end it in. And I mean, the you have one of the longer previews that people have put up on
Hmm.
their page. So I think, that 5-6 pages gives you a good taste of what you're getting into. And,
Yeah.
for those of you who are hopping in late, one of the things we talked about earlier is our mutual admiration of Jonathan Hickman. And I
Yeah.
used the phrase after he described what the series may look like as that move sounds pretty Hickman-esque. So this is one of those things that now I'm personally invested in, that I'm just going to start spamming my socials because I want this damn book in my hands, and I want,
Yeah.
Seasons and Lifeline as well. And I want them sent to me at one time, and I want a cover of Rufus taking a dump with a man with butterfly wings on a beautiful, beautiful cover.
Yeah, it's the something Stan Lee would say is Marvel Comics should be the world outside your window. And that's what that cover is, the that
Yeah.
fantasy element. Yeah, right outside Rufus's window. And so, yeah, I mean, that's I'm so glad. Like, I love all the covers, but yeah, there's something really special about that cover in particular that is just really striking.
Yeah, and I mean they're all beautiful, and the level of artists
Yeah.
that you got
Yeah.
for those, like, this is just looking at what is getting pulled off in these preview pages, and the cover alone makes me wanna see the direction of it. So I'm wishing you the best of luck. I am very, very hopeful that this funds you are trending in the right direction, and I can't
Yeah.
wait in a couple months to read all of Man-Child issue 1, to be able to write about it on the blog. And
Yeah, man.
then when you get ready to ramp up the campaign for issue 2, I'm here. I would love to talk about it, and hopefully we can have a Man-Child book club before the next interview, and see if we can
That's
get some of
right.
those other fandoms. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate you hopping in at the last minute. This was a good change of pace for me. I love talking to creators. I love indie comic creators. I love talking to people who you can tell are students of the game. And
Yeah.
as someone who's got to teach high school students to research all day, I love someone who talks about, here's where my story comes from a well-researched perspective. So
Mm.
you are someone who I'll set up a Google, a Kickstarter alert, and any kind of alert that way when there's like, something new's coming, I'll be like, oh yes,
Yeah, totally, man. Well, hey,
But
thank you so much. Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, I appreciate your time. I'm gonna go ahead and kick you backstage, and we will wrap this up for the evening.
All right, sounds
But
good.
everybody who's hopped in tonight, who catch portions of this on the rewind, I appreciate you checking it out. Y'all know how much I love talking to people on Kickstarter, especially because it's a different kind of grind from people who are already contractually set up through a publisher. That I enjoyed talking to Nandor, because you can tell that he like me as a fan, that if I ever had the creative acumen to write a kind of comic book, that this would be the thing that I like, right? A celebration of my fandom, a celebration of my love for a medium. I just don't have that creativity. I just have to live vicariously through creators like Stanley, through innovators, right? Through people who are wanting to change the game themselves, but also don their cap to the past in Nandor. So the last thing that I will do before we say goodbye for the evening, I again will say thank you to everybody who is a patron or a channel member of mine. That your support is still mind-blowing to me. Chop and Drop, I appreciate you hanging around. No Bammer, again, I love that y'all hung out for a while. I enjoy everybody who has hopped into the chat, and now I'll still highlight Fox Crown's super chat, that he's still my first, but I might have two Foxes in my life that I am endeared to now. My scum lord, and now my favorite comic book creator with Fox legally in their name. I think we'll go with that. I think that'll work. So I appreciate your time. I'm gonna wrap this up and go see which one of my children are awake, and see if I can lull them back to sleep before I put a bunch of comics away or finish reading things for the week. So I appreciate you all, and as always, thanks for stopping by, and have a good one.
Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.